All right, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Moments of Solace. Been a little bit of a hiatus. We were traveling. The kids got sick.
Life
Kids stayed
happened.
sick.
They didn't sleep.
Yeah. So here we are again. We're back to do it. So hopefully we'll be more consistent going forward.
Okay, so I was on TikTok scrolling away today, and I saw this video about like a mom talking about, we should stop telling people to have a village, especially those that don't have a village. And then another mom had done a switch to it, and it was like about, I think like expecting people to have a village is like not the realistic thing anymore, and that you should tell future moms or moms to be that they have to prep to pay for their village because the village is no longer free.
Yeah.
And like that really like prompted a like dialogue in my own head because I'm like, that is so true.
You talk to yourself?
Yeah, I talk to myself because nobody else is home, so I'm like working and talking to myself. I say some really amazing stuff when nobody's around. Start recording.
Nobody's there to verify it. So yeah, I'm brilliant.
I am brilliant.
Yeah, sure.
Excuse me.
Yeah. So what was your dialogue? Tell me.
So I think that is so true. I think when, times have changed.
Yep.
And so when our parents were like, they were having kids, they lived in joint family systems and they had like this village or, people that they turned to when they needed help. But times since then have changed, right? Like, a lot of homes are two-income households. Everybody's working. Kids need to be put in daycare. There needs to be nannies. There needs to be somebody who comes and cleans the house. Like, there's a lot of things that come up, and people don't necessarily talk about how expensive it is to have kids and how expensive it is to find care for these kids.
Not
right?
just expensive, how hard it is.
And how hard it is. Like, the process of finding daycares and, like, childcares isn't easy. It's such a tedious process. Like, you can't just, like, go outside of your house and there's, like, a daycare there. And, like, you just, like, it's like putting your kids through college.
Yeah, well,
tuition,
depending on the type
like,
of school you put daycare you put them in, yeah.
That too. And then, especially right now in this current, economy and, like, financial crisis that's happening, it is nearly impossible to be able to find the proper care and proper, like, nannies. And, like, daycares are packed, completely packed. So you have to, like, essentially get put on wait lists. So I wanted to hear what your take is on that. Do you think like village is no longer free, or you think that like that just applies to like, because we're fortunate, right? Like, we have our family around, like, Baji comes and helps, and we get to see her so often. Then moms come, and we're fortunate enough to have that. But obviously it's not the same thing still as like your family, like our parents living close by,
No, I think it's a really interesting point. I have a couple different takes on it. So, like, when you showed me the video, I actually sort of had like a dialogue in my head as well.
You talk to yourself?
Oh, absolutely.
I know you do.
I don't necessarily say brilliant things though. A lot of just stupid thoughts. But no. So let's see.
Why are you always doing weird things on camera?
Beard. Just randomly shedding into my mouth.
Doing weird things on camera.
So all right. So
see,
it was a couple different things that I sort of considered at first, right? I think the first one was sort of like, it's a really good point, because I remember when we were looking for a nanny, and we didn't realize, for one, how hard it would be to find a nanny.
And that the first time you find a nanny, it's not necessarily the right nanny for you. That's the other thing,
then just
right?
So how expensive it was, because we were like, we're going to go in with the budget, they talk about $15 an hour as like this, like, so I thought $15 an hour I thought was a lot. We got in there and I was like, oh, no, like, that, you want a cheap nanny? It's like $26 an hour.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a lot.
And that was like it was like in the pandemic, like coming out of the pandemic. Like, everything was still shut off. Like, people were just trying to like kind of start.
Yeah.
And so it was crazy then. I can't even imagine now.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And then even like now with like with Elise's and Azina's Montessori, right? Like I remember last year we were doing our taxes and I was looking at like how much we paid and I was like, this was a year's tuition for my college tuition that we're paying for Montessori for one child. It's crazy, you know. And alhamdulillah, we're fortunate enough that we are able to do that right now. But like, it's wild, right? And I don't think enough people talk about it. I don't think it's transparent enough as you go into talking about having a child. Like I just remember when my first job, my manager was talking about how his wife, who was a lawyer, was going to leave her job because it was cheaper for her to quit her job and watch their 3 kids than her to continue being a lawyer and then pay for childcare.
Yeah.
Which, like, in my head, it just didn't compute.
Yeah.
Right? And then now I get it. I'm like, oh, okay, because it's just an exorbitant amount of money. But the other angle for me was actually sort of like when you tell people to save up for your village, I think it furthers the sort of hyper-individualism that exists in the West. Right, because if you go back to like Pakistan or a lot of these Asian countries, not even South Asian or Arab countries, right? People still have their families around, right? By and large,
yeah,
their families are still around. They're still, you know, they're jointly taking care of these kids, and the family's sort of growing up like that. But like here, it's this constant like everybody's moving around, where everybody's moving further away from each other for these things. And part of it is obviously necessity.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
I was going to say that. I think I don't think I don't think people want to be away from their loved ones.
Well, I do think a lot of people do. Right. And there's a lot of layers to it. I mean, we could go forever on this topic. Because it's the trope in the U.S., right? It's like, Thanksgiving dinner with the family. It's the worst. Right. It's like, why? Why is any time with your family so bad? Why can't y'all get along?
Yes, but I feel like that kind of just like we'll essentially be trailing off.
Yeah,
this topic.
that's what I'm saying.
Like, so you kind of have
to. But that's what my thing is, that like you just sort of constantly we're in the state where we're feeding the hyper individualism, right? Because eventually you're going to get to the point of like, okay, cool, now I have to save up. So like I'm still pushing away my family. I'm not relying on anybody. I'm not even making friends who can be close that would consider family, right?
I don't think the person was saying that though.
I don't think the person is saying that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's their intention, right? But I think that's just what the eventuality of it is.
Yeah.
Is that you tend to, not you, but this hyper individualism, rugged individualism tends to get sort of heightened because you are constantly relying on money rather than relationships. Because you're more willing to part with dollars than you are to part with your convenience. Right? And I think that was the flip side of it for me, where it was like, you know, instead of just saying you have to save, right? I think also being able to be like, okay, cool, like, but what if you plan for your family in a way where you're close to your family, where you're close to people who you can rely on and count on?
Yeah.
As opposed to just saying, okay, well, make sure you save up, because then what happens is then everybody who is in a lower socioeconomic class is irresponsible for having a child.
Yeah. But I think it's okay. I get what you're saying, and I kind of don't agree with it.
How dare you?
Mainly because I'm like, you know, I think a village, first of all, village doesn't just necessarily mean that it's your family and your friends, right? Village is support.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes in many forms when you're thinking about having kids or have kids, right? I think like it's important to know that, again, there's a lot of people that don't have the luxury of living around their families. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, they don't have the luxury of their families being involved. And so, you know, while it's great and people are fortunate enough to have that, there's a lot of people that don't have that.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to go back to this person. I think this person, when they were talking about like saving up for your village, they meant like as in, you know.
You have all your space over there.
My foot is cold. I need to keep them warm, so I'm touching your shin and calves.
This village charges for their warmth. Okay?
I paid you in dinner. Okay, so I think this person was really talking about, you have to save up because there's a lot of things that happen when you have kids. Because she also mentioned something along the lines of you need to pick the partner.
Mm-hmm.
You want to pick the right partner to have kids with. Yes. And you want to make sure not only is this
Which
person...
is something I feel is weird that you should even have to say. Which I agree that she said it, right? I don't disagree with the statement.
But she also mentioned, actually, I'm going to actually link this video in our description below so people can, kind of have their own dialogues. But, she also mentioned, have this, find the right person for yourself, but at the same time, make sure this person also wants to be a father.
Yes.
And that to me was this is so true. The reason I'm disagreeing with what you're saying a little bit, it's because I think it's just, it doesn't, stop moving your leg.
You know how comfortable it is for me, the way you're putting pressure on my leg?
But it felt good to me.
Oh, it's selfish.
Okay, well now my train of thought is gone. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But anyways, I think that I have a follow-up question on it, actually. How do you feel about, people that actually have to quit their jobs to be, you have to, when you have kids, there's a lot of things that you have to consider. And a lot of things that people don't talk about is that, somebody in that household may have to compromise or sacrifice something, right?
Yep.
Somebody may have to take a little bit of time off from their career, or they have to change their career trajectories, or they have to pick up other jobs to make ends meet, whatever it is, right? Do you think that is important to talk about before you have kids, or you just kind of navigate through it as it happens, right?
Yes, I think it's important to talk about, but
how do you even as first-time parents, you don't think that
well, I think you at least should talk about what you envision.
Yeah.
Because we talked about it, and nothing that we had discussed, mind you, sort of came to fruition, right? Because for me, I grew up in a family where, usually the women didn't work, and they took care of their kids, and it was this network of a huge family. They're all sort of taking care of their kids. Yeah. And as you grow up, you realize a lot of these women had ambitions, and they had goals, and they had things they wanted to do, and they have degrees, and they did, and you realize what they gave up, right? So when we talked about it early on, it was this thing that I had sort of told you about, how I saw it, and you talked about how you saw it. Now, obviously, when we had Elise, you decided to leave your full-time job, but it was also because you were doing social media full-time. But, and even still, because you were still working full-time on the social media stuff, Elise is still in daycare, right? So the idea that we weren't going to put our kids in daycare, we weren't going to have a nanny, also went out the window. Yeah. And it was what's right for us.
Yeah. But I think that it also came after a little while, though. We didn't immediately, just think about putting Elise into school, shortly after
on paternity for 5 months.
Yeah.
And then...
we had a pretty good setup with, we were also in COVID, so, we worked from home. Things kind of just worked out.
Yeah. But also, we got our nanny right as I was closing out paternity. Mm-hmm. Right? And then we fired her.
We didn't fire her. We let her go as a polite way.
Nah, fam. She was
you
fired.
are not to talk about this.
The fact that everybody was giving me calls, getting texts from freaking Ukraine, fire your nanny.
Yes, because it was bad. We had a bad experience with this nanny.
Yeah, she was not a good nanny. But anyways, but I think that conversation is important, right? Because it sort of sets in everybody's mind as a couple, so everybody being the two people, it sets in your mind the ability to have the conversation, right? Yeah. Because it allowed us to, I think more comfortably talk about like when Elisa was born and you sort of were like, you know what, I do want to quit, but I want to keep doing this full time. And then when we were sort of nearing the end of my paternity, when you were like, you know, I think I'll need the help, right? And then even for me,
I wanted to explore the idea. I think I wanted to explore the idea of having help, right? Because people were constantly telling me that I need to have help.
Yeah.
Especially with like being able to create content. But the reason I left my job wasn't because like I was doing social media.
No, I know you left your job.
I
so
decided to leave because I was like, I want to be present for Elise.
Yeah, but I meant to say more that like you were still working full time.
Yes,
right. It wasn't like you left.
And
this
even
job
now,
and
when
you were
I'm
doing
considered
nothing.
a stay-at-home mom, like I still work. So I don't know like why there's like, anyways. But
no, people don't consider social media a real job, but
yeah, I mean it's just like a weird
neither
thing,
here
right?
nor there.
Like,
yeah.
People also didn't consider me just working anyways. So yeah, like I felt the pressure to get help because everybody constantly told me that I needed help. And I at least felt like I had it under control. But you know when people are like...
But that's my point about what the TikTok was, right?
Yeah.
Is because this woman is saying you need to tell people to save up for their village. So what she is saying, and unintentionally, I don't think her whole thing is like consumerism ball or whatever nonsense, right? I really genuinely think she's trying to be helpful and based on her own experiences. But I do think that like when you constantly tell people that you need a daycare or you need a nanny or you need blank, like there's a lot of people who make do without, who don't have family around.
That is true.
Right?
These are all luxuries. I think people forget that. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, we're very fortunate. So I think it puts the wrong impression on people who are thinking about having kids, right? Because you're never ready for kids. You're never financially ready for kids.
I think that is the most important thing to touch on. It's that everybody can plan for having a child, but even when you plan to have a child, it's just not enough planning.
Yeah.
Because there's so much uncertainty involved in raising kids, having kids. Like, you can plan ahead for years.
Yeah.
It just does not work that way.
Yeah. And also, that's the thing, you're also just never financially ready to have a kid, right? Like, no matter what happens, like, you can spend as much as you want to on a child.
Yes.
Right? Like, you can buy the $3 Target onesies. You can buy, like, the $800 Gucci onesie. I don't know why Gucci makes onesies. But they do. And they're very expensive. Right? And it's like this kid's going to grow out of it in a couple months.
Yeah.
But,
to each their own.
Yeah, to each their own.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Is like you can literally spend millions of dollars on your child in its infancy if you were so inclined. Right? Like, I remember when we thought we were, good. And then I remember when we went to Moab and Elise went into the thing, and then we got back to the ER.
It's like, what, $20,000?
Yeah, it was $11,000 after like the.
It was, yeah.
Right, and again, we're so fortunate that we were able to sort of talk to our insurance and that was taken care of. But like, can you imagine?
Oh, I think
the panic that set in for me. I was like, holy crap.
That was just a part of the bill, though. There was a
we had paid a decent amount.
Yeah,
otherwise,
there was okay, the healthcare is not free first of all, and then the amount of times like you have to take kids in for like the viruses that are hitting them now,
and the bacterial infections and all that stuff.
Literally, I feel like the kids spend more time outside of daycare than they do at actual daycare. So you're just literally paying money left and right just to keep things afloat. It is wild.
Yeah. But I think that's and we're sort of diverging from the topic.
Yeah.
Right. Just talk about how expensive kids are in general. But I just think that like talking about like constantly making it about like paying for help takes away, because like, I remember Baji was like, well, I can come here 3 days a week and I'll do half days with you guys. She had the flexibility with the work that she was doing at the time.
Yeah.
And Madhya was always like, oh, just bring the kids here and we'll do. And so like there's options out there for us.
Yeah, we definitely have
and again we have family around. We're fortunate. We're choosing different things and based on like everybody's conveniences and needs and
I think for us,
consideration. But
we did have the help at that time. I think we chose to navigate through parenthood as our own journey. And there's nothing wrong with that. We wanted to see what worked for us as a family.
And we love the fact that the kids are in school now, right? Like, I think they learn so much in Montessori.
Just watching them pick up things, it's crazy.
It's phenomenal.
I mean, there's definitely parent guilt in sending your kids off when you know that you can figure things out, right? But at the same time, realistically speaking, like, I can't get things done with kids at home. Like, between like cleaning and working and shooting content and then meetings, like I would spend like literally half of my day just like nap timing and then feedings, and then the day would be over. And then it's bedtime. So it's like, for me, like, I have to continuously remind myself, like, the reason we decided, like, the reason we decided to do this is, one, for them, because it really does make a difference in their ability to learn, and they just develop so many skills. And then two, like, your sanity, and for you to be able to maximize and really take full advantage of your time. Like, the first 2 days that both the girls went to school, like, the kind of, like, the loads of laundry I did, folded and put away, I, like, deep cleaned our kitchen.
Put away?
Well, it kind of
it
got picked up once we traveled.
I'm kidding.
You're so mean.
Joking about how you don't put away laundry.
I know, but, like, it's something that I have to work on. But you don't have to call me out on that publicly.
It's okay. I'm not going to cut it out, but...
I know you're not.
At least we know.
At least I did laundry.
That's true.
So, there's also that. I could have easily left it.
Yeah. I mean, you couldn't have because you needed the laundry.
I could have also just, like, left your laundry and just did mine.
You could have.
I didn't. Anyways. Okay, one last question. I think I just had, like, a bunch of questions to ask and stuff, and I think it was just kind of important because I was thinking about it, right? I think about weird stuff when I'm... Okay, anyways. Do you think, how do you feel about one partner wanting more kids than the other?
Are you asking, is this for yourself?
No. I am actually generally just
asking for a friend.
No, I'm generally just asking, right? Because I've never spoken to, like, my friends about this. I've never asked family about this, right? You only hear, like, oh, you know, a family's having another child, or, like, you know, we wanted 2, 3, whatever it is, whatever number. How do you feel about, do you think that it's important for couples to be on the same page when they're having kids? And, like, how do you feel about, like, them not being on the same page? Like, you know, one partner could want, like, 4 kids, and the other one is like, I only want 1. Like, how do you come to a median? Like, what is the median? And do you think it's selfish to, like, not fulfill the other person's needs? Like, it's such a weird thing.
I don't know what the medium is. Like, we weren't on the same page before we had kids, right? Like, I wanted more kids, you wanted less.
I wanted 1 kid, and Nabil wanted 3.
Yeah, and then we had a kid, and you're like, well, I want 3 kids, and I was like, 1 was enough.
Well, technically we had 3, so.
No, I'm saying we had 1. We had Elise, and then I was like, 1 was enough.
Yeah, but, yeah. I think once you just have kids, you're just like, I love the feeling of just...
You.
Kids.
Yeah. And I've noticed in general in my life that tends to be more, like, women tend to want more kids once they've had kids.
Yeah,
I don't know
because
why.
Like, it's a beautiful thing, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, despite all the pain and, like, the nonsense that happens, like, it's still, like, a miracle. You were able to carry a child.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And I think I looked amazing carrying all 3 of our kids.
Yeah.
The best I felt.
You know, I think you have to find a way to be able to respect each other in that regard, right? Because I don't, for once, on one end, I think men don't respect, you know, and we see this a lot, obviously, in South Asian cultures where men just want to have babies, right? Not recognizing the burden it puts on their wife.
Yeah.
And I don't think they respect the burden that it puts on on their spouse or their wife. And honestly, I also don't think women respect the burden having children puts on their husbands.
Yeah, I
Right?
think it definitely should be a discussion for sure.
Yeah, I think it needs to be thought
But
out.
I just think like it's a little like, honestly, I don't even know, right? Like the reason I thought about it is because like, I see a lot of my friends having kids, right? And they like, obviously there's a lot of people have said like, oh, they want to have 4 or 5 or 3, like people.
Honestly, at this point, I'm like, after seeing what's going on with the planet, I'm like, did we screw over our kids by having kids?
Probably.
Like, do
Like,
we
what's
just...
our backup plan? We don't even have one. What is our emergency exit?
Yeah. Like that dude who built a like doomsday bunker in the missile silos. Part of me is like, man, I wish I had like $2 million to just buy a thing so that we could put our kids there and keep them safe. But like,
I mean, there's a lot going on.
yeah.
But I feel like there's always something going on though.
Yeah, I'm talking about like global warming.
Yeah.
Right? Like everything that's going on with the planet right now.
Yeah,
it's
we can't
insane.
undo that. We cannot undo that.
Yeah. So like
And it
part of me
seems
is
like
like,
we're just
do
delaying
we
it.
sentence our kids to misery?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I don't know where I sit on this.
I don't know that there's a right answer.
Yeah, I don't think there is, right? Like,
I think y'all got to do what's good for what's right for you. But I do genuinely
actually,
think you have to do it.
I would like to hear like people's thoughts
Yeah.
on that. I think this is like, I really genuinely want to know, like, have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you wanted more kids and your spouse didn't, and then you felt like, like you couldn't have what you wanted, and you thought that their decision was selfish? Like, I want to know like how you navigate through that. Like, I think it's
Yeah. Or I would also flip it. Like, how have you felt if you ended up having more kids when you didn't want more?
yeah.
And how did that make you feel?
Like, yeah, like what does that do to our relationship?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I also hope that one day we're able to shoot these podcasts like during broad daylight, because having just these discussions at the end of the day, my brain's like literally fried by now.
Yeah. I mean, whatever.
And like I feel like we're half asleep.
I'm not half asleep.
You haven't been sleeping, my love. But
That's
it
what
was
I'm not half asleep. I'm 3/4 asleep.
all right.
Moments.
Well, we're excited to be back and do this again. Would love your support. Subscribe to our channel. Get in the comments. Write those comments. We'll do our absolute best to chat with you there.
Yes. Be nice to us. Look, some people need reminders, okay?
I think everybody's just I think there needs to be a little reminder of
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Some people need reminders.
like before you send out a
'Cause-
comment. Is what you're saying nice? Press yes. If no, please erase.
Is what you're saying something you would be comfortable saying in an open physical forum to a person to their face? If no, please rethink.
Yeah.
If yes, are you sure?
It's everywhere. Everybody is like, it's happening to everybody. If you are
Yeah.
a public figure, there's somebody out there just, nobody's safe.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't think people consider people on the screen to be humans.
Yeah.
I think I think people forget.
I think I've also said this before we go. I think I've also, like, I've said this multiple times actually.
To subscribe to our channel.
Yes. And I think people that, do this nonsense online love to dehumanize public figures, but then also want them to be humans when they need them to be passionate about something.
Yeah.
Mind blowing. All right. Well,
Cool. Peace out, everybody.
peace out.